From where we left off, Brokeback Mountain by Annie Proulx. Dawn came glassy orange, stained from below by a gelatinous band of pale green. The sooty bulk of the mountain paled slowly until it was the same color as the smoke from Ennis's breakfast fire. The cold air sweetened, banded pebbles and crumbs of soil cast sudden pencil-long shadows, and the rearing lodgepole pines below them massed in slabs of somber malachite. During the day, Ennis looked across a great gulf and sometimes saw Jack, a small dot moving across a high meadow, as an insect moves across a tablecloth. Jack, in his dark camp, saw Ennis as night fire, a red spark on the huge black mass of mountain. Jack came lagging in one late afternoon, drank his 2 bottles of beer, cooled in a wet sack on the shady side of the tent, ate 2 bowls of stew, 4 of Ennis's stone biscuits, a can of peaches, rolled a smoke, watched the sun drop. "I'm commuting 4 hours a day," he said morosely. "Come in for breakfast." I'm turning this off because it's too much racket. Okay. "Come in for breakfast, go back to the sheep. Evening, get 'em bedded down. Come in for supper, go back to the sheep. Spend half the night jumping up, checking for coyotes. By rights, I should be spending the night here. Aguirre got no right to make me do this." "You want to switch?" said Ennis. "I wouldn't mind herding. I wouldn't mind sleeping out there." "That ain't the point. Point is, we should be in this camp, and that goddamn pup tent smells like cat piss or worse. Wouldn't mind being out there. Well, tell you what, you got to get up a dozen times in the night out there over them coyotes. Happy to switch, but I give you warning, I can't cook worth a shit. Pretty good with a can opener. Can't be no worse than me." Sure, I wouldn't mind switch." They fended off the night for an hour with the yellow kerosene lantern, and around 10, Ennis rode Cigar Butt, a good night horse, through the glimmering frost back to the sheep, carrying leftover biscuits, a jar of jam, and a jar of coffee with him for the next day, saying he'd save a trip, stay out until supper. "Shot a coyote just at first light," he told Jack the next evening, sloshing his face with hot water, lathering up soap and hoping his razor had some cut left in it while Jack peeled potatoes. "Big son of a bitch, balls on him the size of apples. I bet he took a few lambs. Looks like he could eat a camel. You want some of this hot water? There's plenty. That's all yours." "Well, I'm going to wash everything I can reach," he said, pulling off his boots and jeans, slopping the green washcloth around until the fire spat and smoked. They had a high-time supper by the fire, a can of beans each, fried potato, and a quart of whiskey. Sat with their backs against a log, boot soles and copper jeans rivets hot, swapping the bottle while the lavender sky emptied of color and the chill air drained down. Drinking, smoking cigarettes, getting up every now and then to piss. Firelight throwing a sparkle in the arched stream, tossing sticks on the fire to keep the talk going. Talking horses and rodeo, rough stock events, wrecks and injuries sustained. The submarine Thresher lost 2 months earlier with all hands, and how it must have been in the last doomed minutes. Dogs each had owned and known the draft. Jack's home ranch where his father and mother held on. Ennis's family place folded years ago after his folks died. The older brother in Signal and a married sister in Casper. Jack said his father had been a pretty well-known bull rider years back, but kept his secrets to himself. Never gave Jack a word of advice, never came once to see Jack ride, though he had put him on the woolies when he was a little kid. Ennis said the kind of riding that interested him lasted longer than 8 seconds and had some point to it. Money's a good point, said Jack, and Ennis had to agree. They were respectful of each other's opinions, each glad to have a companion where none had been expected. Ennis, riding against the wind back to the sheep in the treacherous, drunken light, thought he'd never had such a good time, felt he could paw the white out of the moon. The summer went on, and they moved the herd to new pasture, shifted the camp. The distance between the sheep and the new camp was greater, and the night ride longer. Ennis rode easy, sleeping with his eyes open, but the hours he was away from the sheep stretched out and out. Jack pulled a squalling burr out of the harmonica, flattened a little from a fall off the skittish bay mare, and Ennis had a good raspy voice. A few nights they mangled their way through some songs. Ennis knew the salty words to Strawberry Roan. Jack tried a Carl Perkins song, bawling, "What I say, ay." But he favored a sad hymn, Water-Walking Jesus, learned from his mother, who believed in the Pentecost, that he sang at dirge slowness, setting off distant coyote yips. "Too late to go out to them damn sheep," said Ennis, dizzy drunk on all fours one cold hour while the moon had notched past 2. The meadow stones glowed white-green, and a flinty wind worked over the meadow, scraped the fire low, then ruffled it into yellow silk sashes. "Got you extra blanket. I'll roll up out here and grab 40 winks. Right out of here at first light. Freeze your ass off when that fire dies down. Better off sleeping in the tent." "Doubt I'll feel nothing," but he staggered under canvas, pulled his boots off, snored on the ground cloth for a while, woke Jack with the clacking of his jaw. "Jesus Christ, quit hammering and get over here. Bedroll's big enough," said Jack in an irritable, sleep-clogged voice. It was big enough, warm enough, and in a little while they deepened their intimacy considerably. Ennis ran full throttle on all roads, whether fence mending or money spending, and he wanted none of it. Let me skip this part. Okay, they fucked. So, this is a family-friendly channel. Ennis woke in red dawn with his pants around his knees, a top-grade headache. Without saying anything about it, both knew how it would go for the rest of the summer. Sheep be damned. As it did go, they never talked about the sex, let it happen, at first only in the tent at night, then in the full daylight with the hot sun striking down, and at evening in the fire glow, quick, rough, laughing and snorting, no lack of noises, but not saying a goddamn word, except once Ennis said, "I'm not no queer," and Jack jumped in with, "Me neither, a one-shot thing, nobody's business but ours." There were only 2 of them on the mountain, flying in the euphoric, bitter air, looking down on the hawk's back and the crawling lights of vehicles on the plain below, suspended above ordinary affairs and distant from tame ranch dogs barking in the dark hours. They believed themselves invisible, not knowing Joe Aguirre had watched them through his 10x42 binoculars for 10 minutes one day, waiting until they'd buttoned up their jeans, waiting until Ennis rode back to the sheep, before bringing up the message that Jack's people had sent word that his Uncle Harold was in the hospital with pneumonia and expected not to make it, though he did, and Aguirre came up again to say so, fixing Jack with his bold stare, not bothering to dismount. In August, Ennis spent the whole night with Jack in the main camp, and a blowy hailstorm. The sheep took off west and got among a herd in another allotment. There was a damn miserable time for 5 days. Ennis and a Chilean herder with no English trying to sort them out, the task almost impossible as the paint brands were worn and faint this late in the season. Even when the numbers were right, Ennis knew the sheep were mixed. In a disquieting way, everything seemed mixed. The first snow came early on August 13th, piling up a foot, but it was followed by a quick melt. The next week, Joe Aguirre sent word to bring them down. Another bigger storm was moving in from the Pacific, and they packed in the game and moved off the mountain with the sheep, stones rolling at their heels, purple cloud crowding in from the west, and the metal smell of snow pressing them on. The mountain boiled with demonic energy, glazed with flickering, broken cloud light. The wind combed the grass and drew from the damaged crumholts and rock a bestial drone. As they descended the slope, Ennis felt he was in slow motion, but headlong and irreversible fall. Joe Aguirre paid them, said little. He looked at the milling sheep with a sour expression. Some of these never went up there with you. The count was not what he'd hoped for either. Ranch stiffs never did much of a good job. And we will leave it there. Thanks for watching.